All right, let's sync up audio.
It used to be my job.
Sync up audio.
No.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of After Hours. I'm Tim.
I'm Jonathan.
And today's topic, we're just going to be talking about strengths and weaknesses. Jonathan's special concoction again. It got rave reviews last time.
And you may have noticed something different. I still have not gelled my hair recently. Oh, wait. Or
were we talking about that?
Or it's Tim now has...
Oh, yeah, my hair. All right, Jonathan, since you are in control of Webster, go ahead and give us the definition of strengths and then definition of weakness.
Yeah, the definition's sort of bland, I feel like, when it comes to business, but you can still sort of put it together.
Anything you can relate to in life goes over to business because you are making your business your life.
Weakness, the state or condition of lacking strength, which, interestingly then, if you go to strength, is the quality or state of being physically strong.
Oh my gosh, it's such a cop-out. Do you think it is fruitful for a person to focus on their strengths and forget their weaknesses, or is it the most beneficial to find out the both? Like, know your strengths, but also know your limits, know your weaknesses. Or is that a mindset that is just probably not good? Or is that a weakness in and of itself?
You're going to give your opinion, too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, all right. I think that focusing on your strengths is the most important thing to do. But at the same time, you need to be analyzing your weaknesses and still trying to improve them. Because as you improve them, you also improve your strengths. But I think by focusing solely on your weaknesses, then you're gonna be trying on something that you may never be able to fully perfect, and you're not going to be focusing on growing something that you're really good at.
I guess it really depends on the person. It depends on what really motivates them, what gets them going, what sets them as a goal. Because some people, of course, could be very just focusing only on weaknesses, which makes them feel paranoid or make them feel insecure or self-conscious, making them feel like, I know this is a trouble of mine. I get nervous on stage, and now I'm on stage and I'm nervous, so that explains why I know this already. It probably makes it worse because you're solidifying it. You're re-solidifying it every time it comes around, and therefore you cannot touch it to make it no longer a weakness. There's no way to strengthen it. So it really depends on the person. I feel like it depends on their upbringing of if it's some sort of like young psychosis that they were kind of, my relative told me I looked chubby. So ever since then, I've grown up with this whole notion that I am overweight and that I need to stop eating. So, I mean, that's really where like eating disorders kind of come from. So I feel like those kind of weaknesses tear you up inside. So it really depends on the person, depends on what they've gone through in life.
But when you talk about that, then I guess, if you think about it, if you then focused on the strengths, things that you were really good at growing up and not really focusing on what somebody considered a weakness that you now have in your head.
It's the opinion of people, really, that influences you. How influential are you, or influenced are you?
I guess people do sort of dictate your weaknesses, right? Because you're going to hear it or see it based on, how you perform in front of others and sort of the feedback they give you. Same thing with your strengths. You sort of learn your strengths.
That's another great conversation to have as far as influence. That's huge. Les Brown had a great quote saying that another person's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. I was like, there it is. It's like, yeah, you can't really control what people think of you, So if people say something that's your weakness, it doesn't have to be your weakness. Or if it's something that you acknowledge yourself, it doesn't have to stay that way.
Or something that Grant Cardone says that I like.
Here we go. Quote from you.
He says that what people see in him, the things they like and dislike, are actually things about themselves.
That they don't like?
Or do like. He said that he feels like that he brings out the best, both the worst and the best. And it really comes down to people see in him what they really feel about themselves. And that's what bothers them, or that's what motivates them to like him more.
That's really interesting. I would consider that to be true as well. It's just like people react to what they can relate to. So whether they like or dislike, it's something that reflects from
them. Think about it with money, right? I guess with his business, for example, I think is a good one. Depending on who the person is, I can sit there and watch him and be like, okay, he's now worth over $1 billion. Wow, that's something to go after. Like that, to me, that's like a drive, even though I don't think I'll ever get to anywhere near that. But still, it's this drive to want to get there. the other person that may watch it is like, man, he is just so into himself. He just makes all this money, thinks that he's all that,
Very true. Yeah.
and does, sees it from the
People
different
who are
perspective.
just like, oh, he's overrated. That
So
sort
what
of
some people see as a strength is a weakness. What some people see as a weakness is really a strength. So it is. I really think it does come down to sort of,
beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. So it's like it's only a weakness if you admit it. And
But when it comes to business, what matters, or when if you want to be president or anything like that, is still the mass overall. Like what percentage of people see your strengths versus your weaknesses, right? You obviously want it to be more in your favor when it comes to business, or if you're trying to be somebody that's going to be an influencer or somebody that's going to be out in the public.
okay, so then let's go ahead and lean into more of the business aspect of weaknesses and strength. Like, of course, if you're running a business, if you're the head of a business, you have to know the limitations of what you guys can do, because I mean, you can't sell something you can't do. You have to know what your company can handle and people under your employ and all that sort of thing. And knowing your strength is how you sell, is how you advertise yourself, because you have to be confident in knowing what you can do solid, do very well, so that you can just put that out there for everybody. So let's say for you, since you are a business owner, what would you consider, how do you find out weaknesses? Like reoccurring problems, or is it just like one big thing, like one day you just found out that this does not work, or is it accumulation of a lot of things?
I typically see it from reoccurring problems for the most part, because usually those are the underlying weaknesses that you don't necessarily see that you have until you really start to see them happen over and over and over again, and you start to realize, okay, we have a problem here.
Now, here's a deeper question. Would you say the weaknesses you find in your business can reflect on your personal weaknesses?
Yes.
How so?
I mean, because I guess it's because I take I feel full responsibility for anything that goes on here.
You take it personally.
Yeah, I take it personally. So, if I feel like things aren't flowing well here, there's not the right communication, then I feel like it ultimately comes down to me not giving enough direction on how people need to do things or systems in place. So, yeah, I think that, it definitely does come down to
Interesting.
the leader, the person that's supposed to be in charge.
So when you discover the strengths of your business, do you take it as like, are you prideful of that? Are you proud of what your company can accomplish? I mean, how can you not be?
Yeah, and I think, again, it comes down to the leadership. And like myself personally, for example, here, I mean, I take a lot of pride in the fact that I care about our customers. And so I think that shows through. I feel like everybody here on our team as a whole cares about our customers. Doesn't mean things still don't slide through, and that comes some of the weaknesses, but that doesn't mean that we don't care. And so I think that our clients do see that. So if say something happens, they forgive us because they do realize that we care about them. So I think that's like one of our strengths, for example, in our business. So yeah, I think I haven't really thought about it like that, but I do think leadership definitely drives a lot of the strength and weakness in a business.
Yeah, especially if it's your personal business, because you are putting yourself in there.
Yeah.
And what would you consider the most valuable strength for a business to have? Like, the first thing that comes to my mind is consistency. Because it's like you said, everyone could be on the same mindset of treating the customer well, but it could just take one bad day to lose a customer. Without that consistency, I feel like you can't grow and you can't maintain yourself. So what would you consider a business's primary strength to achieve?
I agree, consistency and quality, but I mean, I guess you have to have consistent quality.
Consistent quality, yeah.
So it's sort of good
Consistency
together.
and quality, those are top of the notch.
Yeah, and I mean, I think always number one is customer service.
Okay, but do you believe that the customer is always right?
I
Not what are you supposed to say, but
No.
what do you think?
No, I don't believe that the customer is always right. I think though that when something goes wrong, which is a weakness on our part, I feel like it's because we didn't explain things well enough.
So it's like you don't blame the child, you blame the parents, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
We didn't
I
instruct
mean,
the child.
is there
well
that
enough.
super rare time where
Sure.
there are people out there that misery likes company?
Yep.
I do think that's out there.
Great quote.
But I think that for the most part, it usually comes down to a weakness within the business of not giving clear direction on, here's when you're going to get this, here's when you should receive it by, here's how it's going to be done. You should, I think it all comes down to us, and how we do things.
I guess it's the most profitable when you take the responsibility, when you take the blame.
It is.
I guess that's really what it comes down to. Because there was I think a quote from Steve Jobs that says like, the person who said that the customer is always right was, I promise you, a customer, so that they could get their way. And I always like that quote. So, but yeah, I mean that is a whole other topic to talk about. But what would you say is probably the most influential weakness that if it's not addressed, that it could just be the end of the company, like it could just drain you dry?
Financials.
So not being like business, like financially savvy,
Yeah.
knowing where the profits are and the income.
Yeah, I mean, watching what you're spending. I mean, but I guess again, it goes back to so many things. You know, are you pissing off your customers to where they're leaving, not coming back? Are you overspending?
So lack of
Are you-
awareness,
yeah.
really. Because I mean, if you're unaware of how you're losing money or spending money, or the lack of people coming in and out, so yeah, I guess just being
I
blind.
mean, if you don't have more coming in than going out,
You should see the 2 and 2 don't make
Yeah.
4 anymore. So how can a small business become a large business? Because therefore their limitations have expanded. So basically, how can a small business grow past their limitations and become a bigger? How can they blossom into a bigger business?
how can they continue to grow with the limitations that they currently have?
Or how to keep pushing those limitations? Because even big businesses then have limitations, but they're just on a higher level.
Well, I mean, I think it's just by consistently, yes, analyzing what some of your biggest weaknesses are that could turn into strengths to help profit your company. I think that's one of them. But I think two is just really focusing on what your strengths are and developing those, because those are obviously what have been helping you grow anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's a good way to keep growing and pushing past that point. But, I mean, at certain points, you have to start looking at your weaknesses as you're trying to grow, because there are certain weaknesses in business that are going to keep holding you back. I mean, like ours currently are getting systems in place so we can start scaling the business even more, try to open up new locations, things like that. We just physically can't do it with how we currently are, and I mean that is a big weakness in terms of that. So if that's the question you're sort of asking, I mean, you do have to definitely analyze your weaknesses, so what your bigger goals are, and start just trying to pick away at.
Knowing when growth can be profitable instead of like we tried to run before we could walk kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I think we had Russell Furr in here one time, and I think he talked a little bit about saying that you have weaknesses is a weakness. It's more so just focusing on your strengths is the best thing you can ever do for yourself. Do you agree with that?
I think it is most important to focus on strengths first.
First.
Yeah.
What about weaknesses? Do you ever acknowledge them, or
If
is it best to just like, you know what, no weakness, only focus on strength?
If you don't acknowledge some weakness, then you're just lying to yourself.
Denial is a weakness. It is a fine line. I think it's a really good mindset to have confidence in yourself, because I feel like there's such a lack, especially with the younger generation and growing up with social pressures and stuff, and then it becomes a psychosis that they become older and it just stayed there and it's festered and there's no budging.
Well, and I think sometimes by looking at some of your weaknesses, and again, I don't think that you should harp on them, and that should be what you focus on every day, all the time.
Right.
Because it's just going to make you feel pessimistic, and you're not going to be able to grow by looking at
It can
your
be an
strengths.
addiction.
Yeah, you can turn your weakness into a strength, but you can't do that unless you're analyzing it. But I mean, say for example, you have all these products that you always need to get to clients, and you need to get them delivered to them, but you don't have a delivery driver to get them there, but you need to get them there every day, and you're upsetting your customers. And then finally you're like, okay, this has really been a problem. I can't really afford it right now. Let me go ahead and bring somebody in that's going to do deliveries every single day.
Right.
You might find out within a week, 2 weeks, a month that all of a sudden you have a ton more business. People are spreading the word about you. And that
Because
was
of dressing.
Yeah, and that was at one point a big weakness. And now all of a sudden, you're getting things to people so quick. They're like, wow,
It's kind of like you're putting a cork in the one leak in the boat so you can stay afloat longer.
Yeah. And I mean, but it could turn into a super profitable thing because now you can get to more people in a faster time. And
Well, there you have it.
there you have it.
Today we've been talking about strength and weaknesses. Thanks for drinking with us.
And Tim's hair.
Oh yeah, I guess we haven't talked about my hair. It's
Tell them about your hair, Tim.
It is a conversation starter for sure because it's just so glorious. But that's for another day.
It's very Goldilocks-y.
I'm Tim from After Hours.
Jonathan next to Goldilocks-y.
Thanks for drinking with us.
Thank you.
kind of
burp
have to
again,
drink.
I swear to God.
Huh?
You better not burp again.
Oh, I can't. I can burp on command.